So Carson Price for Thursday. Almost forgot the day. Thursday, February 6th, 2025. Coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center, where the Invictus Games have taken over everybody. And this program, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sekeres alongside Patrick Johnston, co-hosting for Blake Price today of the Province and Post Media. Four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, Hidden Switch is conducting things. Thanks for sitting in a second straight day here.
Happy to be here, Matt. You know, I know things have felt like they were blending together, but it is a new era for the Vancouver Canucks. So
it really is.
You need to look at that calendar. It is a different day every day now.
It really is, and I'm heading on a little weekend holiday, and so you know how that is, right?
Well, are you saying you're already thinking about that?
Well, I'm already thinking of all the things that I have to get done for this flight, shepherding two senior citizens onto this flight and into the vacation. Not to mention what we're going to do. I'm going to Vegas. I'm watching the Super Bowl at the big Durango Casino.
Yes, you're telling me.
Very much looking forward to this. Okay. We will start with the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, as we do most days. Which defenseman made more sense for the Vancouver Canucks? You can vote for Marcus Pettersson, fresh off a 6-year, $5.5 million per year extension signed yesterday, or Nikita Zadorov, who, of course, signed a 6-year, $5 million contract with the Boston Bruins in free agency. You can vote at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. First, let me just go through the particulars here, and then we'll get your answer, Peach.
I'm ready.
6 years, 5.5. It's a full no-move clause in the first 3 years of the deal. It's a 15-team no-trade clause in years 4 through 6. Nikita Zadorov, and same term, $500,000 less per year. Nikita Zadorov got a full no-move clause this year. He got a full no-move clause next year. And then it's a modified no-trade for the final 4 years of his deal. So, with all that said, and Marcus Pettersson has just finished doing media on this. They were a good bit delayed there. We were hoping to have that at 11 o'clock. So we'll see if we can hear from Pettersson. Hear Jeff Patterson. Gosh, we got 3 Petterssons and a Patterson here. Jeff is stick handling for us, and so we may hear from him here momentarily. If not, we'll hear his voice on this tomorrow. But he did say off the top, and I know you listened in, familiarity with management here made the decision for him to commit despite spending just 4 days and 2 games.
Well, and I had a chat with his agent, Peter Wallen, as well. So just before we went on air, it reiterated a lot of what we heard from him. Exactly. Like, this is a player that knows, or he likes what he sees. He knows management. He didn't play for Rick Tocchet in Pittsburgh, but he is aware of Rick Tocchet. He know, as he, the agent said, he knows the coach is good. And I think the other thing is that Pittsburgh is obviously going for, if not a full rebuild, certainly a reset. And he looked at the opportunity that's here, a chance to be with a team that, I mean, we came into the season thinking this team was moving forward, right? So, they've obviously moved on from JT Miller, but this is a team that still wants to move forward, and they saw him as an important role in that, and he clearly feels that. And, and he is looking at a situation, he's 28 and a half. He turns 29 in September. It's a great age for the player. He's still in his prime. He's still doing all the stuff he can do, which is play smart defensive hockey, get the puck, move the puck quickly, and do the things that the Canucks want him to be. This is a role and a fit that he looks perfect for. So you can see why he was so keen to sign on here.
Where are you casting your vote?
I am going to Pettersson.
Okay.
I mean, listen, Zadorov was fun. The Zadorov experience was fun, both from clearly selfish from a media standpoint.
Oh, he was a blast.
Absolute blast. Yeah. Absolute blast.
Yeah.
Never afraid to say what he thinks. And, and in many ways, a true iconoclast. And obviously the play in the playoffs, was an experience and it was great. But in the regular season, he was more of what I think he had been for much of his career, which was realistically that third pair defenseman, played big but made mistakes. Marcus Pettersson's a different defenseman, right? He plays with a bit of an edge, but he really is he's a guy that has been able to play as caddy to some really good defensemen. He understands what that role is. He is going to probably get to play a bit more of a two-way role if he's going to anchor down his own pair. But a player that is a more complete player, I think, in the long run for the Vancouver Canucks.
I voted Nikita Zadorov, and I am in a massive minority here. We are 1,700 plus votes into this poll question, and less than 12% are voting for Nikita Zadorov. Look, it's a tough call, and I fully admit I might be a little too swayed by that fantastic postseason Nikita Zadorov had for the Vancouver Canucks. Let's remember, this is not a guy who is prone to putting up big offensive totals, and yet he was 8 points and 4 goals in 13 games last year for the Vancouver Canucks through those 2 rounds, and clearly one of the best Canucks in both series. Look, he's bigger, tougher, he's a little cheaper, there's a little less trade protection. He's probably more mistake-prone. He's a year older. There's not a whole lot that separates these guys offensively. But there are very few Back when we used to have enforcers, fourth-line wingers, most of whom couldn't really play the game, every team had the element of intimidation. Since NHL GMs and coaches finally got smart and realized, no, we can't dedicate a roster spot to a guy who doesn't play, since that transformation has happened, there have been principally few players that bring intimidation and are good enough to play a regular shift. Nikita Zadorov is one of those. I want that element on my team, and that's part of why I voted for Zadorov. Response here from Fallacious Argument Enjoyer at Funnier Handle. I see you're doing one of those bits where you choose to be wrong on purpose so Blake can be right about something, and it creates a nifty little debate. A very good radio. Good work, Matt. And I said, well, Blake's not here. Patrick is sitting in. To which he replied, he has a lot of Blake qualities.
Oh, boy.
So he's an adequate stand-in.
Is that a
I
compliment?
think you're better than adequate, buddy.
Is that a compliment?
I think you're better than adequate.
I hear someone saying that you're always there. You're always right.
Well,
The mayor of Wrightville.
yeah, I don't know about that. Shout out Jay Emo, brother to Clay. Matt, I rarely feel your takes are way off the mark, but this is one of those times. MP3 is way better now and over the long run. All right. So I'm taking it on the chin here today. Fair enough. Yeah.
YouTube's at 92
Yeah.
favor of Pettersson.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hey, sometimes you lead with your chin in this business, and I've got 3 of them. So let me ask you some serious questions here, Patrick.
Yeah.
They had time on this extension. They chose not to use it. Why not wait till the trade deadline? Why not wait till the summer? Get more info on how he'll work out here, how he does in the playoffs if you happen to get there. What did you owe this player having just acquired him? Help me on that.
Yeah, that's a fair question. There is an element of wanting just to get it done. I mean, clearly this is a player they'd wanted for a while. And the way he plays, I don't think there's a great mystery here. I agree. Like, there wasn't a rush. They didn't have to do this right away. It's not like he can turn around and go sign with somebody else. And I don't have any impression to think that, if they'd waited till the deadline or whatever, that would have changed the dynamic here.
Yeah, like he's not a big offensive point producer that was going to go out and suddenly get more expensive over the next month. I'm not sure he was going to get more expensive over the next few months. Right?
I suppose
was there any upward mobility in his contract leverage between now and
I don't think so.
June?
I mean, when I talking to his agent, he's like, "Well, we pretty clearly saw what we thought our value was and his value was." And
yeah.
I suppose if the first conversation was, "Well, what are you guys interested in?" and the number that you're told is essentially the number you were already thinking, I suppose you just say, "Oh, well, let's get this done before this changes." Strike while the iron's hot, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's about the only thing I can think otherwise, because like you said, it's not like he's going to go and run the power play and put up 20 points between now and the end of the season, you know?
So the AFP Analytics firm that does a fantastic job at predicting player contracts, they had him as a 5-year, $5.8 million guy. So he got an extra year and was a little cheaper season to season, up to $1.8 million over the life of the contract. Now, look, I get the part that part of the trade cost with Pittsburgh was the notion that you would be able to re-sign him. So the trade certainly looks better. Let me ask, Rutherford waxed poetic about this acquisition. He was pretty proud. He said, I acquired him once, and that was way back when from Anaheim, and he helped our team, and now I've done it again. Could it be that the Canucks president of hockey operations is too in love with this player? That it's a little bit of my guy syndrome?
I'm sure
that is reflected here as well.
Jim Rutherford made it pretty clear this is my guy. You know, in the
did he ever?
You know, and
I wasn't sure if he wanted to acquire him or adopt him.
Yeah. So there's certainly a player that they are very, very, very fond of, and they are operating in a way as if this is a guy they've had all along. It doesn't strike me as one of those acquisitions where you're going, oh, this might turn south on them. Like if they had jumped on Zadorov right away, I might have gone, I might want to see how he plays first. And like I said, it was a mixed bag with him. Nothing about Pettersson tells me he's going to be a mixed bag player, certainly because of his age and because of the way he's played. So,
all right,
there are ones I'd be more anxious about. This is not one I have to say I'm very.
Do you have any reservations about committing this kind of term and money for a player who really doesn't help you offensively?
Well, with the cap going up,
that's what I thought you'd say,
right? Like, and like he's also, like I said, he's 28. Like this contract expires when he's still going to be 34, right? You're paying for. You're giving him full control of his situation for 3 years till he's 31. Most players are still who they are at 28 when they're 31.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, some hard minutes there. You hope the body's able to make it through the 34, but I don't have a huge problem with the get out age here, the get out year. There might be a year or two that are a little. Well, we'll see. Last question on this. What message does it send to Brock Boeser, or is Boeser and his camp fully aware of what's going to happen here?
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem like there is much movement there. Anytime I've asked Patrick Allvin about it, he's been pretty cautious about it. He says variations of, well, we'll have to find a number we can agree on.
Yeah,
and making it pretty clear that the number he sees, and I think the number that Ben Hankins and Brock Boeser's agent and Boeser himself see, is much different.
Yes, and I don't blame them because I think Brock will get paid by someone. I said last question, I lied. One more. Is there any possibility of a Rantanen-style deal here with Boeser? And obviously he's not Mikko Rantanen, but what I mean is where they move Boeser for a club-controlled player or two?
Yeah, I mean...
By the deadline?
Yeah. I certainly before everything happened, I wondered if he might be the plus. They might go for something really big, move him and somebody else to see what they could do.
Oh, wow.
But that was just me spitballing, to be clear. I never had any suggestion of that, at least not in the current season. he is an interesting piece. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He will make a team better. I still think makes this team better. But if they are looking at managing the situation, managing what he brings, looking at what they need on this team, I find myself wondering, because like you said, they could look at that Rantanen situation and say, listen, Rantanen was on a big ticket. He wanted a bigger ticket. We have the ability to do such a thing because they have cap space. That certainly is something I have pondered as well. Whether they go ahead and do it, I don't know. I mean, this is not a team that's necessarily looking to build for the future.
No.
They want to bring players in to make this team a playoff-ready team.
Right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi have developed a special program for the Sekeres and Price audience. If you have been turned down for financing in other dealerships, Surrey Mitsubishi has dedicated a representative, Jessica, to help you get approved through their in-house financing program. Bad credit, negative equity on your current car. Jessica's going to apply the special program for you, do everything possible to make sure you are approved. Email Jessica at surreymitsubishi.com. Make sure you mention Sekeres and Price. Some conditions apply. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue. We will get to our top story now, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Captain Quinn Hughes to miss a third straight game and a fourth is likely. Will he play for USA at the 4Nations? ? Rick Tocchet was asked about this after practice on Wednesday. Let's hear from the coach and come back and discuss.
Well, it's getting close. It's a good question. Is it depends on the next 48 hours? I guess that's really it comes down to. So we'll sit down and Quinn and talk to him.
If he's not able to play on Saturday, do you think that's an indication that maybe he shouldn't be playing in the 4 Nations?
It could be. Depends on how close he is to plan on Saturday. That's really what it comes down to. But yeah, we're gonna have to. It's gonna have to have a hard, long look at this. Like every player, you're concerned about safety and healthy and all that stuff.
Just to be clear, he's wanting to play these games, right? He says he can play.
Like our games now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he wants to play, but we don't. He can't play. Put it this way, I can be the bad guy. I don't care. Like he's not going to play. Yeah, would he try to gut it out? But I think he's a smart kid too. He knows like gutting it out, it's not going to help our team. For us, last game of the year, I don't even know if he'd play probably, but right now it's the kid's got a big will to play, but he knows. He knows better than that.
What about the runway too? I mean, the tournament's great, but the stretch drive is obviously more important. I mean, how do you even broach that?
Well, it's tough, like in Pietrangelo, he's made that decision. So I don't know. It's a tough one because I know Quinn is a USA guy, loves his country, play with his brother. There's a lot of positives to it, but like I said, we got to. He's a smart kid too. He understands what's at stake also.
A lot there, and as per usual, Tocchet quite honest with us. In terms of Hughes wanting to play this week, they all want to play.
Yeah.
They all want to play at all times. He can't play is pretty strong from the coach, pretty definitive.
Yeah.
There was a question about whether he was going to skate today or whether he needed a rest day. And yet, Tocchet, you can also hear there's some tiptoeing there, and that's because of the sensitivity of all this. You know damn well the Vancouver Canucks don't want him playing in this tournament. They have nothing to gain by it. You also know that Quinn Hughes and all these NHLers who are looking at a first opportunity to play best on best at a senior championship want to. They've been waiting forever on this because of just how greedy the owners and Gary have been on international hockey, making it a bargaining chip in CBA negotiations. Telling people that, oh no, we don't like the way we're treated by the IOC, and it interrupts our schedule, and that doesn't work for our fans. No. Every hockey fan the world over wants to see best on best. There are 33 people who don't want to see best on best, and they're the Board of Governors and Gary. But here's the other thing that struck me listening to this speech. Is there any question if it's the Olympics? I think it just goes to show the folly of this tournament, how contrived this tournament is.
Yeah.
How it is a moneymaker. Some would say cash grab for the NHL, for the NHLPA. How really it is the manifestation of Gary's shortman syndrome. Hockey fans the world over love the Olympics. Why don't they like our league? Why don't we do something like that? We want the money. We need to own this area of the game. Well, the difference is the Olympic gold medal is one of the most treasured prizes in all of global sport. The 4Nations trophy is not. That isn't changing today. That isn't changing tomorrow. That isn't changing after this tournament. Teams have until 5 p.m. Monday to replace injured players on their roster. The reporting here from Pierre Lebrun. They can only replace injured players during the event itself in emergency situations, so if they drop below 18 skaters or 2 goalies. What do you think?
I will be very surprised if he plays.
You're there now, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought that almost immediately. When I asked Tocchet on Tuesday, was it Tuesday? Tuesday. About whether Quinn had improved since Friday, Tocchet said slightly, which felt pretty generous.
Yeah.
So,
and look, based on what I heard there, it doesn't sound like he's playing Saturday against the Leafs here.
No, it really doesn't.
When Tocchet's saying, I don't mind being the bad guy, and part of me wonders if that's the Vancouver Canucks acting on out of personal interest here. No, we're not going to let him play Saturday. And then maybe that leads to him making the decision not to play. Because that's what they need here, right? They need Quinn making the decision. You know what? It's probably best that I don't play in this. They don't want to have to tell him that.
Yeah.
They've just executed a couple of trades, completely remodeled the team, and may have to go even deeper. Everything is about keeping Quinn Hughes happy now. So this is not an outlet where you want to draw a line and get on the wrong side of your captain.
The thing that stands out to me in all this, again, is it comes back a little bit to the overall who is in charge of your health question. I mean, obviously teams are going to approach their own games by, looking at what's in the best interest for us and the player, because we want the player to stay healthy. So we will walk that line. But at the end of the day, under the CBA, the team technically has the final say. This is the Jack Eichel thing, right? So if you want treatment, we can say no. If you are not going to play, we can say no. That is where we're at. And I get what you're saying with the 4Nations aspect of it. But in the end, the team is going to say, we need this player healthy because we are going for the playoffs.
Yep.
And this tournament that has been created out of thin air does not matter.
It doesn't. And here's the test, and I don't know about you, Patrick, and I've told this story before, but covering the 2010 gold medal game at Rogers Arena, Canada Hockey Place.
There you
go. I experienced something that I can't remember if I ever, certainly not to the same measure, covering a game on press row, and that is I just full lost my objectivity.
Yeah.
I found myself watching it as a fan. When Roberto was popping out rebounds to the low slot, there were butterflies and nervousness and anxiousness coursing through me. I'm just not sure I'm going to have that same internal reaction to the 4Nations face-off. And I stand by what I said yesterday. I think Canada-USA has a chance to be a real competitive and intense game.
Right.
I think, as you mentioned, Sweden and Finland, I think will be a competitive, intense game. The rest of them and who wins it, I'm not 100% sold that you're going to get 100% buy-in across all of the participants and the fans. I think some will completely invest.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the absolute total buy-in like an Olympic gold medal game.
Why did
Two-thirds of this country watched the 2010 Olympic gold medal game.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening for the 4Nations final, even if it is Canada-USA again.
Just as a side note, why did the Canada Cup work so well?
Because we didn't have the Olympics.
Okay.
We didn't have best on best at the Olympics. And because we sat there and we watched the Russians, particularly in Calgary, 88, I can remember it like it was yesterday, just blow our doors off. And coming out of that and coming out of Albertville and Lillehammer, because you remember we had the 2 years between winter games. They moved off the quadrennial.
I like to remind Corey Hirsch about that, by the way.
No, but, sitting there and, look, they were marvelous players. Larionov, Krutov, Makarov, Fetisov, Tretiak, marvelous players. But we sat there looking, going, well, they're beating teams of cobbled together Canadian professionals or Canadian amateurs. It's not a fair fight. Let's bring our best. And ultimately it happened in Nagano in 98. But yeah, the Canada Cup worked because we didn't have best on best at the Olympics. It was the moment they all stepped foot in that arena in Nagano, I don't think there was any putting the genie back in the bottle.
I think you're right.
In terms of a senior international best on best tournament, that wasn't the Olympic Winter Games.
And we've seen that, what was it, 04 had a World Cup and 2016 had a World Cup? Is that right?
Well, just think of it from a player's skates. I get a chance to win an Olympic gold medal, the same gold medal as, fill in your Olympic hero, whether it's Jesse Owens or Nadia Comaneci, go down the list, right? That appeals to athletes. They're competitive people. Is the 4Nations medal or trophy or whatever they get going in the trophy case prominently? Probably not, right? But we have people at the house. Here's the Olympic gold medal. That's a totally different conversation. It's a different achievement, and I think everybody is finally getting to that realization. Okay, our friends. Actually, before we get into our friends at Yellow Dog, let me just ask: do you perceive there's big risk for the Canucks if they ask him not to play?
Big risk in what sense?
Do you think it could? Would you risk any kind of deteriorating of the relationship if you thought that is a potentiality of asking him not to play?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he clearly wants to do it.
You think he'd take it in stride, though, or?
No one wants to hear bad news.
No,
but
of course
he
not.
is a
Of course
massive
not.
professional.
Yeah.
He will accept it and he will move along. Given what I know of him, it will be disappointing. But for the sake of winning the Stanley Cup, which is still the stated goal here,
And the ultimate goal.
yeah, I think he'll get it. You know, it might be different if it were the Olympics. I
think it is.
Yeah, I think he might. It might be a tougher conversation.
And the other thing I think is, I think Pietrangelo has given guys license here because he's playing 20-some minutes a night for the Vegas Golden Knights and opted out of this tournament a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yellow Dog Brewing has released Starborn Kolsch. This brew features 4 lucky furry friends from the Make My Pet a Yellow Dog Brewing Star contest. King Buddy, one name there. Gus, Yuka, and Winston. And through this collaboration, the fundraising contest they do with the BC SPCA, they raised $220,000. Well done, Yellow Dog. So happy to be able to support the BC SPCA. So everybody raise their Kolsch to Starborn and the beautiful pups supporting the BC SPCA. Okay, Carson Soucy We heard from him yesterday after practice. Logjam on the left side of defense now after the acquisition of Marcus Pettersson and the elevation of Elias Pettersson from the farm, DPD. Let's hear from Carson Soucy, because I think we were all surprised on Sunday with Quinn Hughes out of the lineup and Carson Soucy is scratched. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, I've been there before. After 50 games in, a reset's it's not a bad thing. Just kind of, it's not terrible to watch a game from up top. You kind of see certain plays develop easier, obviously, up there that you can kind of hopefully translate when you get back in. And then ultimately you just work hard, get a workout in, do some conditioning, kind of come back ready to play.
Do you agree with the coach's assessment that there is more to give?
Yeah, I mean, I know I got more to give, especially coming from last year. I think kind of just a tough start has led to not my best play, but like I said, a little reset, kind of come back, just try to get that confidence, get that aggressiveness back.
He was also asked about playing the right side, which of course he did on Tuesday night against Colorado, and said it can be tougher holding the gap there. Or, you're on your backhand in the defensive zone more often than not. But he also said, you're on your forehand through the neutral in the offensive zone. So
there's the reach thing. I mean, part of me thinks about he's closer. He can get closer to the guy. But anyway.
Are you advocating for wingspan, Patrick?
I am.
That is
I
very
am
much
absolutely
encouraged on this program.
Absolutely advocating for wingspan.
They laughed at me once, Peach. They laughed at me. Who's laughing now?
I am with you.
One day I brought it up to Button. He tore a strip off me, and Blake was just giddy sitting there. I was like, I'm going to ask Button about wingspan. He's like, you're going to ask about what? I'm like, wingspan. He's like, where is that coming from? And I'm like, scouts measure it in the NBA and in football. And he's like, but this is hockey. And I'm like,
so what?
Your ability to affect space still matters. No? Did the physics not apply to hockey? Okay. Enough about that. I indulged. By the way, Carson Soucy is a great talker. How come you guys don't talk to Carson Soucy more often?
I feel like we talk to him fairly often.
Boy, I want Carson Soucy on mic more often.
Carson Soucy show. There we go.
He's a terrific talker.
He is a very good chatter.
Yeah, smart guy. That was a great answer. This is a great answer too. He's asked about his name surfacing in trade talks. Here's what he said.
Unfortunately, yeah. But at the same time, with the new additions that have come in, I like our last couple games with this group going forward.
Your situation, though. I mean, you committed to the city when you signed a contract here. I think you want to be here, obviously. I mean, is it internal competition? You just look at it as, just everybody's got to raise their game and do their part?
Yeah, I mean, this league, there's always going to be guys that are pushing to play it. It's the best league in the world. So you got to be ready to fight for your spot in the lineup. You got to be ready to elevate your play, and that's something that I got to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's a professional answer, right?
It's on me.
Yeah?
Only one guy can fix this.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't know, Carson Soucy is from Irma, Alberta. Mm-hmm. It's a little township southeast of Edmonton. Elliot Friedman, in his 32 Thoughts column, has tied him to Calgary. I mean, we went over this yesterday, Peach, and we'll so again with Rob Williams, the president of the Carson Soucy fan club, coming up next in the show, actually.
And Jeff Merrick.
And Merrick as well, that's right. But there's a good case to make against a Carson Soucy trade. Depth.
In general?
Early
yes.
For Elias Pettersson, was very good in the playoffs last year. If you can hold down the right side, solves the problem there. Like, there are a lot of good reasons to keep Carson Soucy. As we said yesterday, if you just get blown out of your socks in terms of what someone is willing to offer you, and that could be the case when you look at the prices of defensemen right now. But in no world do you trade him to the Calgary Flames.
Not a team you're chasing or fighting.
Not if you're playing to make the playoffs. Like, if you lose a ton of games between now and March 7th, the trade deadline, and you're looking to liquidate somewhat, okay, that's a different conversation. But right now, no. I know they made the 2 trades with Calgary last year. Totally different circumstances. They were going for it. Calgary wasn't. That's a direct competitor.
Yeah.
Not in a million years do you send him to Calgary right now. And frankly, I wouldn't be too fussy about sending him to Edmonton either.
No.
Or Vegas. And incidentally, those are the, Elliot also mentioned, the Canucks he said out-wrestled the Oilers and Golden Knights on Drew O'Connor.
Good for them.
They were on Drew O'Connor as well.
I was not.
And he's next for an extension, according to Elliot, or at least they're going to work on that.
I was not surprised when the Canucks picked up Drew O'Connor because I think I mentioned this yesterday. He was a name that Jim Rutherford mentioned to me ages ago. I don't even remember. A reasonably early Jim Rutherford conversation where we were just discussing the idea of collegiate free agents and how they can help you. And he cited him as an example of a guy that.
Because, of course, Jim did not express interest in O'Connor. That would be tampering. He was just using him as an example of
player
a college
he
free agent
he was
that
proud
worked out.
of.
Right, Paige?
Wing, yeah.
Speaking from a guy who once got Jim Benning fined big on PK Subban.
Would you like to recount that tale?
Oh, my God. There was so much going on at the draft. The lobby was absolutely packed. PK Subban's name was up. Benning was scheduled. He sat down. I just asked him, are you interested in PK Subban? Didn't even occur to me tampering. It was just like, oh, PK Subban's available. You remember how big deal PK Subban was?
Yeah.
I said, Jim, are you interested in PK Subban? Yeah, we made a call to Burge. We're absolutely interested in PK Subban. Then Marc Bergevin lied through his teeth minutes later about he's not available, blah, blah, blah. The whole world knew that PK Subban was available. Sure enough, Habs fans went crazy. Tampering. And my whole timeline was tampering. Sure enough, the NHL concurred. They fined the Canucks and Benning. I think it was $25K. I stand to be corrected. And when we got back from the draft, I called Jim, and I had never been as sheepish making a phone call, and he picked up the phone, and I said, Jim, a 1,000 apologies. I got caught up, an on-location show, all these NHL luminaries, GMs around us, PK Subban, breaking news. I normally wouldn't ask that question because I know the rules, but I'm sorry I asked it. And I'm sorry, and he was incredibly gracious. He was like, Matt, I understand you're doing your job. Don't worry about it 1 second. Everybody knew PK. Everybody knows PK Subban's available. Like this charade that we do, sort of. Anyways, I gained a lot of respect for Jim Benning
because he had his moments.
Most managers would have been furious and yelled at me, and frankly, I would have deserved every bit of it. And Jim was anything but. Okay, the game tonight against San Jose, and of course, no Hughes. Here's how they skated yesterday. Elias Pettersson between Connor Garland and Jake DeBrusk. Philip Hedl with the other new guy. Drew O'Connor, Brock Besser on the right wing there. The checking lines, Suter between Joshua and Sherwood, then Bluger with Hoglander and Oman. Lots of accents on vowels on that line. Forbert, Roenick, Marcus Pettersson, Myers, Elias Pettersson, Soucy, Mancini and Juleson. I have not seen if there's any confirmations, and help me out, Peach, in terms of anybody coming in or out.
Well, it was, I believe, optional.
Yeah, it was a winning lineup, and of course a shutout for Thatcher Demko, his first of the season. So
we had no sort of suggestion, certainly yesterday, and certainly what I saw, that there was any idea that they go away from what they had. So.
Okay. Moving along then. This caught my eye from Paul Peduti, who does really terrific work, really smart guy. And Jay Fresh picked it up as well. And I want to throw this at you because is Talk It Hockey onto something? Power plays these days are as lethal as ever. We're seeing a ton of empty netters these days. Stands to reason, right? Guys are better with the puck. They can hit that target from distance better than ever before. Overtime goals also up. As we know, 3-on-3, possession is everything. Guys are regrouping, understanding angles of attack, and all those things. Save percentage, lowest in 19 14 years. So you put all that together, should be a pretty high-scoring league, huh? Fewest even-strength goals in 5 years. Even-strength scoring. Do we got the graphic there, Mike? Here we go. Even-strength scoring is down from 4.17 goals in 21-22 to 3.89 goals per game this year. And here's why, Pat. Shots. 21-22, even strength shots per game, 49.59. Today, this year, 44.50. 5 fewer even strength shots per game in the National Hockey League this year. So possession is king. It works as a defensive metric.
Yeah.
Don't just shoot from anywhere unless you're the Carolina Hurricanes. Is this what we're seeing, League?
I think the other thing you see in that chart, the shooting percentage is up. Like finishing is better. There's no doubt.
Finishing is better,
right?
which imagine if it wasn't, then our goals would be.
But I just off the top of my head, but I think you're onto something, which is that possession matters, right? Like teams have clued in on the fact that if they don't have the puck, they can't score. Obviously,
it is the scoring instrument,
right?
And I've heard youth coaches preach this. We don't ever want to give up possession of the puck. On just that simple a philosophy. It is the scoring instrument. You cannot score without it. All you can do is give up a goal if you don't have it.
Yeah. And as teams have gotten better at finishing because of basically the reason you said, teams have realized where the goals are and are not in terms of where they take shots. It is no surprise that that the dead shot has, I think basically disappeared. There were stories a couple of years ago about the death of the slap shot. People wonder,
especially for Petey.
I was going to say, people wonder where at least Pettersson's slap shot has gone. Well, he's not the only person.
I did a podcast yesterday. They asked me, where's Pettersson's slap shot? I said, it's somewhere in the forest north of Chetwynd. It's like a Yeti or a Sasquatch. If you have seen Elias Pettersson's slap shot, please report it to BC authorities. Go ahead.
No, and I find it interesting. So teams have figured out, okay, we can score. The shot, as you said, the shots are way down. The goals are way down. The shooting percentage is the same, which tells you that teams are just trying to be more efficient with their shots and at the same time also being more efficient with their possession. It's an interesting question, certainly one to dig further into.
Yeah, and if that's going to continue, then all the more power plays become even more pronounced, right? Power plays become even more important. Power play conversion becomes even more important, kind of like playoff style games, right? Where you don't anticipate you're going to score as readily 5-on-5, and so when you get those elusive power play opportunities, they become oh so important. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Greta Bar. Come watch on February 15th, presented by Fountain Tire, 50 West Cordova, Canada versus the USA. This is the game in the 4Nations that we think is going to have some bite. It's Flag Day, February 15th. Apparently they're going to be handing out Canadian flags to all the spectators at the Bell Centre in Montreal that night. It's the 60th-year anniversary of the Maple Leaf, and you may have seen the National Post today,
a real paper. Look at you.
Canadian patriotism is back in vogue, says Paul. I wonder what happened.
What could it be?
What was the catalyst?
It's the 4Nations face-off.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Anyways, February 15th, the doors at 4, the puck drop at 5. It's a 19-plus event. Come join us. Tickets are $10. We're raising some money alongside our charitable partner, the Social Run Club YVR. If you want the VIP package, and this is available for groups as large as 6, $40 per person, includes burger, beverage, and a game card to play at the awesome arcade there at Greta. Grab your tickets now, nationgear.ca. Rob Williams is going to join us coming up here, then Jeff Merrick. Fantastic discussions with both of them. We have a lot of fun with Rob. You picked a good day to be here for Rob Williams.
I can't wait.
Yes.
I love Rob.
Especially since, what were you telling me? You have an ongoing thing with Rob on social where You tease him about
Perhaps it's on hiatus, perhaps, but yes. Rob will tweet out something. I'll just go so negative.
so
Rob.
negative. Rob. So that's coming up on the program here today. We need a Bet365 bet of the day from you, Patrick. This segment proudly presented by Bet365, Sekeres Price partner. What did you have yesterday?
I went with Bruno Fernandes to score
Did
tomorrow.
Bruno score?
Well, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So you have another day there. I went on the I went on the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So mine is still to come as well. Where are you going today?
Oh, I was thinking Super Bowl again. I
Okay.
mean, it's a really boring one, but I like the idea of Saquon Barkley as Super Bowl MVP.
Do you really?
Yeah, it pays $375. Let's do that.
Well, if Philly's going to win the game, you would think
Yeah.
that Saquon is the number one candidate, right? A quarterback right there too, but I would think that Saquon has to be a big participant if the Eagles are going to pull the upset. I'm still a little surprised the line is as low as it is. Look, there's no value on taking the Canucks to win the game in San Jose, but minus 1.5 goals at plus 125 at the Shark Tank tonight, even without Quinn Hughes. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Rob Williams coming up next. And this segment brought to you by the HSBC Rugby Sevens, the best party in town, an amazing atmosphere at BC Place, and happy birthday. We are celebrating 10 years, the longest running event of this size and scale in Vancouver. All gets going February 21st to February 23rd. Grab your friends, your fancy dress, 12 women's teams, 15 men's teams, both Canadian sides. They take to the pitch for 3 days of jam-packed action and partying. Single-day tickets available. Friday tickets starting from $45 plus fees. If you want the one-day VIP experience, $130. It gets you the best seats in the house, player access, and there's nothing like rugby players.
No, good times.
They burrow into your heart immediately. Big lugs. What's the expression in England? Soccer is a gentleman's game played by hooligans.
Yes.
Rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen.
Yes.
So absolutely true. Private bar and lounge access plus in-seat food and beverage. Tickets on sale now. Vansevens.com, and we're spelling out sevens there. No numbers. Here comes Rob Williams, the national sports editor of the Daily Hive, and its Offside Sports Vertical, and the president of the Carson Soucy fan club. More on that in a second, Rob, but it's our first opportunity to talk to you since all the trade activity and this transformation of the Vancouver Canucks from last Friday. Look, the second trade was absolutely done with an eye towards this year. I know they re-signed Pettersson here, but that was a trade made to keep the Canucks competitive in the playoff hunt. You think they're better off punting on this season? Did I see this correctly? Pray tell, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, this is consistent with what I've said. Like, for me, there's a time to trade first-round picks. And I know they acquired a first-round pick and then flipped it. But there's a time to be loading up with UFAs, rental players. You know, it makes it more palatable if you re-sign them. There's a time to be pushing your chips into the middle for win now moves. And there's a time to kind of wait. And to me, the time you push your chips in is a time like last season. Everything's going great. Your team's playing really well. You can envision this team challenging for a Stanley Cup. 1 year later, I mean, this ain't it, right? Like this is not, the way they're going right now. I mean, I think it's very hard to envision the Canucks making a serious challenge for the Stanley Cup. I hope this gets clipped months from now.
We're clipping it. Don't you
and
worry.
we all have a laugh at this while the Canucks are charging in the Stanley Cup final. I would love nothing more. But if you look at the facts right now, Elias Pettersson hasn't been right in over a calendar year. Thatcher Demko, understandably after his injury, coming off a great game, but he hasn't been right this year. They don't have JT Miller anymore. Like there's a lot more. You've got a lot more hoping and praying and wishing than you did a season ago when they were hitting on all cylinders. So to me, is this the time to be really, really making these win now moves? And I don't know.
You mentioned Pettersson.
Here's what I will say.
Okay, go for it.
Mike, you put this in the recall file. The moment they eliminate Edmonton in Game 7 of Round 2, we're going to fire this one out, all right? Tag him, Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter.
To be clear. Rob, what at the same time, what about the notion of, look how soft this division is, right? Like the Flames haven't exactly pulled away from the Canucks. The Kings continue to kind of stumble along. I mean, there is an element of winning you're in. Anything could happen. Are you really not buying that idea?
I mean, it's going to be hard to get through Vegas. It's going to be hard to get through Edmonton. I'm not saying tear it down and purposely miss the playoffs.
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. I just thought when I saw that trade, when I saw the first round pick to get Marcus Pettersson, my initial reaction was like, that's a lot to get Marcus Pettersson, right? Like they spent a first round pick to get Filip Hronek. Like that's like top pairing defenseman, under contract, younger, and now the cost is this. I know it's a weaker draft here. I know that does matter. It just, that to me, what I wondered was, I think it's like, look, the cost of a draft pick is never more valuable than right before the draft, right? Draft day, you're trading a pick. Everyone wants that because you get to pick it right away, right? If you're trading a draft pick before the trade deadline, that's when it's at its lowest value. So to me, I wonder like what could you have gotten with that Rangers pick if you traded it in June? I bet you could get more than what they got. So to me, hey, yeah, you've got to retool this defense. It wasn't good enough as currently constructed. But was the time to make that move right now, or was the time to make the move, in June? I think it probably was in June. Now, I'm not saying I don't dislike Marcus Pettersson as a player. Certainly I think he helps their defense right away, and he's going to help it next season as well. But would you have been better off next season focusing your attention on next year rather than trying to salvage what's left of this season? I think you probably would have been better off, taking that lens and taking that approach.
Okay, so all fair. They've now re-signed Marcus Pettersson. So do the math now and tell me what you think of the contract.
Yeah, I don't mind it. And I think that certainly helps this deal, right? Like, I mean, if they don't re-sign Pettersson, they had to re-sign him. And look, it's a little long. 6 years. For a soon-to-be 29-year-old defenseman, that's a few years, but it pays him till what, he's like 34. I don't necessarily hate that. I mean, hopefully he ages gracefully into his 30s. Not every player does, but it seems like a good fit in the room. Certainly, fits a need. Defensive-minded defenseman, somebody you can rely on. I think that ticks a lot of boxes. Now, I think you're going to ask me about him or Nikita Zadorov, and I do wonder, right? Like I think a lot of fans are going to say, why didn't you do this for Zadorov? And I've got to learn a bit more about Marcus Pettersson. I got to admit, I haven't been paying attention to the defensive-minded D-man on a non-playoff team. my question with him, looking at his resume, is okay. He's been a top 4 defenseman, but he's only ever been a top 4 defenseman on a non-playoff team. So is he a top 4 defenseman on a cup contender? Maybe. I'm not here to say that he isn't, but I do think Zadorov, throughout his career, hadn't really ever proven that he was a bona fide top 4 D, other than a great run for the Canucks in the playoffs last spring.
Where are you putting Pettersson in the lineup? Who's he playing with, you think? What's the best fit for him? Is he a guy you could put Hronek with? I mean, we saw who he played with in Pittsburgh. He played with some pretty high-end offensive defensemen. What's the best fit for him here, you think?
Yeah, I think it gives you options now, right? I think we've seen Myers has performed reasonably well with Hughes. That seemed to be like a no-go pairing before this season. It seems to be okay. We know Hughes and Hronek work together. So I think you've got options. I think probably Hughes and Hronek, that's been your, super elite pair when they've both been healthy. That probably is the pair that you lean on and you play for 26, 27 minutes. And now you've got Myers, you've got the gunslinger Myers, and you've got the safety guy in Marcus Pettersson to play with him. That seems like the right kind of profile to play with Myers.
Gunslinger. He's gone from chaos giraffe to gunslinger. I love it.
I'm all in.
Okay, president of Carson Soucy fan club. And to be fair, I don't think Patrick and I disagree with you. I just don't think we're as vociferous as you are on Carson Soucy. But you think trading Soucy would be a bad idea, and you've got a comparison there, a recent history comparison there from which to draw on.
Well, guys, remember when the Canucks fixed their defense last year? They added Soucy, they added Cole, and they added Zadorov. Are they really going to just get rid of all 3 guys in less than a year after they it's like they fixed it and now they're kind of undoing it here? Would seem like a bit of an odd move. I think the thing for me is, look, the job of a general manager is to not just go, who's playing bad for me right now? Let's trade that guy. Yeah. Because of course you do that. Like the player's values is low, right? So what are you going to get back for him? They did that with Andrei Kuzmenko. They could have traded him right after, his 39 goal season, but instead they wait till midseason when his value craters. They did that, and they didn't trade him. But the example I go back to is Ian Cole. It's like everyone was so high on the Canucks playoff run last year. Zadorov was this god in the city, and Ian Cole was just, who cares? He's terrible. And in the playoffs, that was correct. But for the rest of the season, Cole was the guy playing top 4 minutes. Cole was the guy with that leadership, the guy that was not afraid to drop the gloves to protect teammates, the guy with the Stanley Cup ring. Like, that was a guy that I think was really important in the Canucks room. And I think it was a regrettable decision to let him go. And they let him go. He went to Utah on a 1-year, $3.1 million deal. Seems like a bargain. They signed Vincent Desharnais to a 2-year, 2x2 contract. Was that better? Certainly not, right? I think that you need to be careful about recency bias. And I think that's what's going on here with Carson Soucy. He's had a terrible year. It hasn't gone right for him start to finish. But 1 year ago, this guy was the perfect fit in Rick Tocchet's system. He's huge, 6'5", can play on the penalty kill. He was playing matchup minutes against McDavid in the playoffs alongside the gunslinger Myers. Right?
Yeah.
Now, was he a Norris level shutdown D? No, of course not. Right? He was a depth defenseman, a borderline second, third pair guy. And to me, it's like you've just quietened down everything around the market. And now to just tell the whole world essentially that Carson Soucy is available seems like a really weird move to me. And I know, okay, cap space, you can shed his contract, but like
they have tons of cap space. So what's
the
worry about?
Exactly.
You're not in cap hell right now.
No.
And having Carson Soucy settle into a third pairing role. I know they've got DPD. He's had a nice first few games. Pretty early to be making that call, in my opinion. And besides, if you're going to trade him, are you going to trade him at the absolute low point, or are you going to maybe give him a chance to bounce back and prove himself? Maybe he has a nice 2-week run in the playoffs and teams view him completely different. Who knows?
Yeah.
The thing that catches me, actually, and I think I am going to keep hammering on this point, is just that you can never have too many defensemen. And that's the thing that catches me out. I don't quite understand why you're advertising
like
this.
Rob is so right. I mean, you're playing matchup minutes against McDavid in the playoffs, for God's sake.
That's such a good point, Rob.
No. Anyways, I want everybody to mark the date here, February 6th, because when Rob Williams forayed into media, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed from East Vancouver, he very much approached it like a Vancouver Canucks fan. He had Don Taylor chirping at him about his media credentials. And how many years ago was that, Rob? 10 years ago?
Oh, my God.
10 years later, he's shitting on their playoff chances. He's shitting on their trades. He's shitting on their extensions. He's shitting on their ideas to trade Carson Soucy. Welcome to House of Negativity Media, Rob. You have graduated. We will give you your cap and gown here on February 6th, 2025.
The toxic Vancouver media has gotten
Exactly.
Rob, it's all your fault.
I think toxic Vancouver media, I think Rob Williams now. Thank you, sir. All the best for the next week. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. This next segment brought to you by Pacific Toyota Dealers, the 2024 Toyota BZ4X, the ideal Vancouver car. Full access to the HOV lane, the ultimate commuting vehicle, 100% electric, plug it in at night. Overnight at home, you never see a gas station. Incredibly spacious, leg room for days, heated seats in the back. It's got all the SUV bells and whistles. The cargo capacity fits family, friends, pets, sports gear. It can handle any terrain, city, slopes. You're covered. And when you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. And now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Take a test drive, learn how easy an electric vehicle is, and do it at your nearest Pacific Toyota dealership or visit shoptoyota.ca. Here he is from the Sheet Daily, noon Pacific time, Jeff Merrick, who knows Patrick Johnston. We had a bit of a camera mishap there, but here he is.
I looked better a second ago. What do you think, PJ?
I was going to say,
low angle, always the best way to go.
we got the dental hygienist view there for a second. Nice bridge.
You haven't really been flossing much lately, have you, Mr. Merrick? Well, you're old enough to know better, sir. You don't need the lecture.
Exactly. Every day.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, we're doing well, buddy. Wow. Honestly, it's like breakneck speed here. And this guy pulling like triple duty some days, 2 shows of ours in the province. It has been a busy week. Transformative week.
Make that money.
For the Vancouver Canucks. So we'll start right there. What do you make of the transformation of the Vancouver Canucks since last Friday?
I think we're pretty much all on the same page that like something had to give at a certain point. Like there's only so far you could go with this and try to salvage it, and it became pretty obvious that it was going to be JT Miller who was going to be the one not wanted on the voyage. And what you wanted out of all of it was calm coming after the deal. Now, I'm sure that it's things for a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans looking at JT Miller play with the New York Rangers. Like all of a sudden he's like gone to Lourdes and bathed in holy water and has come back healed of anything that ever ailed him before and is looking fantastic with his old team. Look, I think it's a bandage that the Vancouver Canucks had to pull off. As we now, more information comes out about, what happened previous. It was looking like this was something that had to happen, and it hit that sort of critical point. They pulled the trigger on it, and now you hope that the team responds positively. And look, like early return so far so good for the Vancouver Canucks. I know we're going to get to Pettersson here in a couple of seconds. Marcus, that is.
Yes.
And I have to be more specific, as we say in the Atlantic, about which Pettersson that I'm exactly talking about here. But overall, what you want right now is some calm if you're the Vancouver Canucks in the Vancouver market.
I appreciate using that word because that's the word Patrick Allvin used to describe Marcus Pettersson. He called him calming for our team.
He is.
What can you tell?
Can I jump on him? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Jason.
I was going to say, you've seen him more than us, probably. Tell us about him.
I like him. And here's why I like him. I not only do I like him as a player, I like his story. And I can recall Marcus Pettersson. Well, first of all, he was a forward in Sweden until he was, I want to say, it was late, guys. It was until he was 16 years old. He was a forward, and I don't know why. I'm sure you can get it out of him. Why? I've got his agent on the show today, so maybe I'll one of those things I'll get into with Peter is how come he went from this high-scoring forward to being an offensive defenseman. But he was considered in Sweden almost sort of a one-dimensional defenseman for the longest time because, like I said, he transitioned from being a high-scoring forward to being a defenseman. He's kind of like John Klingberg. In some ways, it was like offense, 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 offense. That's what you were getting from Marcus Pettersson, and he got the tag of being one-dimensional. And then, he turns pro, joins the National Hockey League, and all of a sudden he's closer to, and he's not this player, but I'm going to use this as an example. I think you know where I'm going. He's now closer to Matthias Ekholm than he is to John Klingberg.
Sure is.
He started as Klingberg, and he's gotten a little bit closer to Matthias Ekholm.
Yeah.
How's that?
I'm not sure John Klingberg would have worked here for the Canucks. God bless him. Where's he now? Edmonton? Edmonton, say, yeah. God bless him in Edmonton. Score your heart out, John. So how do you think they did in terms of return on the trades?
I think the way that you initially, if there wasn't an extension, you look at it and you would say, "What are you doing? That is a really high price to pay for a rental." I think the extension mitigates it. I am curious, as I'm sure you guys are, what else Vancouver could have gotten in exchange for that first round pick. Again, I always assume, that Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford have more information about the marketplace than I do. I just wonder, and considering how quickly the deal was made too, what was out there? What were their other options with that first round pick? The fact that they were able to get the extension done at a price point, which as the salary cap continues to rise, is going to look better and better for the Vancouver Canucks. I don't mind this one at all. I know that Vancouver's probably in the market for someone that can move the puck a little bit more than Marcus Pettersson can, but not a lot of teams are letting those types of players go. I like him as again, calming defenseman, a smart, reliable presence on your blue line. He's not going to wow you, but he's one of those defensemen where if you don't notice him, he's really doing his job. We've seen tons of these guys, and they tend to have long careers. Coaches love them because when they go over the boards, you know what they're going to do, and most specifically, you know what they're not going to try. I like that deal for Vancouver.
Seems like a culture guy too.
He is, in what sense?
Well, Tocchet has already praised him for what he has added to the room, even mentioned in the final timeout against Colorado the other night. He's sitting there talking and discussing with his teammates and assistant coaches. And, Rick said normally the guys who just arrive are pretty quiet in those sorts of spots, but he felt comfortable enough to speak up.
Can I be stereotypical for a second? Am I allowed to be stereotypical for a second? So I remember having a conversation, and now I always think about this. I remember having a conversation. It was after a CHL NHL Top Prospects game in Kelowna. I remember being at the hotel bar afterwards and having a glass of wine with an agent. And I said to this agent, I said, what I really find interesting about your client list is, I've never heard anyone complain about any of your clients. And that's right. And this guy has a lengthy list of clients. And he said, well, my recruiting policy is very deliberate. And I said, really? What's your recruiting policy? And he said, it's the 2S rule. And I said, what's the 2S rule? And he says, I recruit from the two most low maintenance places in the world, Saskatchewan and Sweden. Because people from Saskatchewan and people from Sweden are low maintenance people. That's my recruiting policy. And I've always, I know it's a stereotype, but I've always tried to remember that conversation. I mean, sure, like, of course, there's some Swedes that'll give you a hard time and some Sasky boys that'll give you a hard time. But by and large, painting with a roller, not a fine brush here, by and large, very low maintenance hockey players.
Happy to be in the NHL.
Is that what we are? Or they are?
Happy to be in an NHL market from some crossroads in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Does that resonate with you, by the way? Yeah, the low maintenance Saskatchewan and Sweden?
I have said it many times on this program. If you have a problem with someone from Saskatchewan, outside of a football watermelon environment, it's probably you.
The problem is you.
If they have a watermelon on their head, okay, throw out the rule. But if it's game day,
is that kind of like saying they always say that there's one jerk at every party, but I don't believe it because I've never seen the guy? Same idea.
Very good.
So you've been to a party with Matt then?
We're asking on our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question because the acquisition of Marcus Pettersson, Jeff, effectively is them acknowledging, we should have done Zadorov over what we did on defense and what we did last summer. Zadorov got 6x5 from Boston. Pettersson got 5.5 by 6 from Vancouver. Which one do you think made more sense for the Canucks?
To me, it's Pettersson. To me, it's Pettersson. I'll take Pettersson over Nikita Zadorov. Now, I know he adds that. I remember, who was it? It was Tom Watt. I'm going to go way back in history for your audience today.
Wow, former Canucks coach Tom Watt.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Tom Watt, who would talk about his blue line, and he would use this line. He would say, on my blue line, I want the biggest collection of hostile, mobile, virile dancing bears. That's what I want my blue line to look at. And there is that sort of dancing bear element to Nikita Zadorov's game that we've all seen, and it's very valued around the NHL for the obvious reasons. Not too many guys do that anymore, and not too many guys play that game. But I look at that and I say, like, that type of physicality and that type of presence, I kind of look at it. If we're gonna look at in automobile terms, it's a luxury item. You love it if you have it, but is it really necessary 82 times plus playoffs every year? I look at what's the meat and potatoes going to be of your blue line? Is it going to be what Nikita Zadorov brings? And again, I'm not saying he's a one-dimensional, just the gorilla goes out there and fires coconuts off the wall. That's not what I'm saying about Zadorov. But his calling card is the physicality, that nature of that physicality. More so than ever, and especially in the playoffs. To me, it's a luxury item. I'll take what Marcus Pettersson does over what Nikita Zadorov does all day long.
One of the standout memories for me with Zadorov was him leading a rush, the way he would get up the ice aggressively. Now, Pettersson isn't quite the same guy, but I talked to him on, what day is this? I talked to him on Tuesday, and he talked about how, in his early career, he learned quite early on that nothing moves faster than the puck. And he's certainly a guy that's going to move the puck. And so he gets the puck up the ice in a different way. Do you think that's a fair way to look at it?
I think so, too. I think that's wise. And listen, I remember watching him play with the London Knights on that team with all those 95s like Bo Horvat and who else would have been on that team? It was Horvat, Max Domi would have been on that team. A young Mitch Marner would have been on that team as well. And that's what Nikita Zadorov did. And he was intimidating. But he was someone that could shuttle pucks quickly. But I look at Pettersson too. Pettersson's the same way. Pettersson again, he has a background of being an offensive guy. You see that come out in his game every now and then, don't you? I'm not sure how many Pittsburgh Penguins games you guys have watched. Now, listen, he's played with Erik Karlsson and he's played with Chris Letang. If you're making a choice between who you want to be moving the puck out of your own zone in those situations, with all due respect, Mr. Pettersson, it's going to be a couple of future Hall of Famers here. But he does have those abilities to move pucks quickly. But Zadorov has the same too. Zadorov can.
Well, I was going to say, can I counterpoint you for a second?
Of course. I mean, no. How dare you disagree with me?
No discussion allowed.
Exactly.
This interview's over.
Stick to the talking points, Matt.
Exactly.
Stick to the script.
In today's NHL, there are very few guys who bring an intimidation factor who can actually play a regular shift. Nikita
Correct.
Zadorov is one of them.
That's true.
And we
That's
saw
true.
that in the postseason last year.
Yep.
Hard to quantify, right? Intangible more than tangible. But he put fear into other people, and I'm not sure Marcus Pettersson does.
He
There you
doesn't.
go.
Two different.
Counterpoint.
No, hang on. That is completely fair. It's interesting because this does wink at the nature of like what is toughness. Okay, like there is that type of Nikita Zadorov toughness. Like to me, there's two different types. There's what Nikita Zadorov brings, and there's what players like Boris Salming brought, or maybe a better example for this market, the Sedins brought. And this might just be a byproduct of me sort of, not that I'm some wizened person, like imparting in sort of brilliant knowledge here, but the older I get, the more I look back at the Sedins and say that their brand of toughness to me was more impressive than Nikita Zadorov knocking everybody around. Because, and much like Boris Salming before the Sedins, I mean, they were punched and slashed and cross-checked and assaulted, and referees tied their skates as they were getting maimed, and they never changed their game a bit. Cross-checked in the head, jumping over the boards next shift, nothing's changed. Play the exact same way. Game in, game out. To me, that's tough, and that gets players respect, and I think that is a brand of toughness. Like there's two things, right? Like there's the ability to intimidate physically, and then there's a toughness that says I'm not going to get intimidated. What's more valuable, right? Like the intimidation is like, oh, wow, he's gonna really hurt me if I go into his corner, or I got to stay away from him. Or give me the person. Like what do you want more? The person that can inflict it, or the person that can endure it? I want teams that can endure it.
For sure.
Maybe that may be a
That's a
Canadian
great
thing,
point,
but
Jeff.
I want teams that can endure that and won't change how they play. That to me is
Especially when they're playing the minutes of a Henrik and Daniel Sedin or Boris Salming, right? Like when you're talking about a guy who's going to play 20-plus minutes a night, no, I'm 100% with you. Before we leave these trades, because I do want to get on to Carson Soucy and the 4Nations here.
Sure.
Your old pal Elliot had in his 32 Thoughts this week.
Oh, my goodness.
The Canucks outmaneuvered Edmonton and Vegas for Drew O'Connor as part of that Pittsburgh trade. A word or two on
Nice
Mr.
one.
O'Connor. Yeah.
He's one of those guys that sort of has kind of, first of all, it's tough to get a headline if you play on a team of future Hall of Famers like the Pittsburgh Penguins. Good on Rutherford Alvin for recognizing that and outbidding. I mean, Edmonton has a very sort of narrow way that they can do business here to get players at this point, given their cap situation, their Kane situation on the horizon. Vegas is fascinating because, essentially whatever Kelly McCrimmon wants, Kelly McCrimmon gets. As you bring up Vegas as a side point, they have been the last 4 games all over the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I know Kelly likes to have a lot of eyeballs on a lot of different players. I get it. I think he said something like it was like 100 viewings of Barbashev before they made that deal. But there's been a lot of Vegas presence around Buffalo Sabres games lately. Do with that what you might.
We're talking 100 in-person viewings of a player.
That's what McCrimmon told me. I think the
so
number
that's
was
like
100.
more
It was
than a
lot.
season. So that's over several years. Wow.
No.
So they
McCrimmon
chart
plays
that.
long game. McCrimmon,
Okay.
McCrimmon plays like, to me. He's one of the. I know he's sort of like, oh, I'm just a good old Canadian. But no, like he is that guy. Kelly McCrimmon is like laser focused, elite thinking manager here. Like, don't worry, he's the chess player. He's got a number of different sort of moves that are on the horizon and players that he has his eyeballs on. Barbashev was not just like now he's available, I guess we should get some eyeballs in there. Boys, let's get to some St. Louis Blues games here. Like that's not Kelly McCrimmon. He's a good surveyor of the entire NHL. Good on Vancouver for recognizing this. I don't know that it's really much of a secret around the NHL that this guy's a real solid player. So, Edmonton right now kind of has a slotting issue for a lot of their players, right? Like, where does Jeff Skinner slot? Where does Kasperi Kapanen slot, right? And not that you would look at Drew O'Connor and say, like, okay, well, you're going to go into a mix like Skinner and Kapanen find themselves right now, but where's that position right now with the Edmonton Oilers? Good on Vancouver for recognizing this one. That's a good win.
So word is that Carson Soucy is available to anyone who is interested. Mm-hmm. Who do you think will be interested in Carson Soucy if he is to be traded?
Excuse me, PJs. You were saying, yeah. I mean, Calgary does make a lot of sense, but doesn't Carson Soucy fit that classic? Everybody wants depth defense at trade deadline. Yeah, like available to everybody.
Yeah,
this is the thing. Like, why would the Canucks trade him away?
Why would you trade him to your direct competitor for a playoff spot? Like, they may be interested, but unless you're getting an absolute can't refuse, way too much value trade, I don't know why you would choose to strengthen a direct competitor.
Don't disagree at all. I'll throw another one out at you. It wasn't too long ago when he was in Seattle that Edmonton was very interested and tried to secure the services of one Carson Soucy. Should come as no surprise. Are they in that same spot now? No. Mm-hmm. I would be more than a little bit surprised if that's what ended up happening. But listen, Calgary would have interest. But if you're the Vancouver Canucks, unless it's a tape measure home run, you're not doing it with a team that you're battling for a playoff spot unless you're getting it out. Because I saw like right away, everyone's Calgary. We all know he's Alberta boy, Sherwood Park, I believe. So it does sort of line up there. But I don't think if you're Vancouver, you're really considering that unless it's one of those. When we were doing this, as if we're winning this deal. To me, you try to send them as far away as possible.
Okay, we got to be quick here, but
okay.
When is it? Monday is the deadline for 4Nations. What do you think on Hughes?
Quinn?
And what do you think at large
this
on
one
whether
is,
we're going to hear a guy's saying thanks but no thanks?
We've already seen one, and man, is he ever gutting it out game in and game out with the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's Alex Pietrangelo. This one's a delicate one. I've always maintained that this is a tournament where managers will put their NHL face on and smile and talk about how great it is for the league and, chumming of the waters for international hockey. And this is wonderful with their, fingers crossed behind their backs and just hoping that none of their players get injured, knowing full well that in events like this, they do. And I think there's, this sort of the ghosts of John Tavares in the background, the ghosts of Dominik Hasek in the background, scotching their team's chances in the playoffs after international hockey injuries. If you're the Vancouver Canucks, this one is really sensitive because you don't want to sour the relationship with Quinn Hughes. At the same time, you don't want to sour your chances of being involved in the playoff picture. I think this is like one of the most delicate conversations you can have in the NHL, and that is how do you. You want to talk about diplomacy, the art of diplomacy. This is going to take a real fine threading of the needle here to sort of convey to Quinn Hughes that you're not going to say, don't do this, but at the same time, make sure that he understands the bigger picture of the season, and that is the Vancouver Canucks, the playoffs, and the Stanley Cup. So this one is a trick. This is gonna bring together all of the experience that Jim Rutherford has had in his NHL career, going back to when he was a rookie goalie with the Detroit Red Wings.
I always like to hit you with the tidbit at the end.
I love this. All right.
You cover so much ground. And
Dancing Bears? Agile, virile, hostile? No. Okay.
And to be clear, not all of these guys were on the same single London Knights team. I took a swath of 2 years with the London Knights.
Okay.
Mitch, how's this for a junior team?
Yeah.
Mitch Marner, Bo Horvat, Max Domi, Nikita Zadorov, Christian Dvorak, Michael McCarron, Josh Anderson, Chris Tierney, Ole Mata. Who was the goalie, Jeff Merrick?
Was it Michael Hauser?
He may have been one of the goalies, but he is not the goalie that I'm thinking of. You don't have to look too far from your hometown, or you don't have to look too far from where you sit.
Oh, no way, really? No way. Wow, yeah. And because he had just come in from, was it Omaha, Nebraska? If you have that in front of you.
Yes. 8 games.
Right?
Very good, Nebraska, Omaha. How about that? 10 NHL players.
That's pretty good.
Over a couple of years on one major junior team.
And they lost the Memorial Cup that they hosted. They didn't win a single game. Edmonton Oil Kings won that one. But then they won it in Red Deer with a top line of Matthew Tkachuk, Mitch Marner, and Christian Dvorak.
Wow.
Which is one of the best junior lines I've ever. Now, listen, the London Knights, like Dale Hunter would always, run those guys out for the full 2 minutes on power plays. Like it's the old London Knight trick. Like Rick Nash got this trick. All the guys in London got this treatment. But the other line that I always compare it to, my sort of measuring stick, was that old Kamloops line of Shane Doan, Jerome McGinley, and Darcy Tucker, which I still think was the best junior hockey line I ever saw.
Sensational. In fact, the coach in Calgary won some Memorial Cups there in Kamloops as part of those teams. Yeah. And I'll say this about the London Knights and the Hunters. Unlike your agent friend with the 2 S's, those guys recruit worldwide. It's supposed to be an Ontario league, and yet somehow guys from everywhere wind up in London with the Hunters.
I will say one thing. Mark Hunter may be Mark Hunter is one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in hockey, period, full stop. And everyone's had this experience. It's like every rink you go to, Mark Hunter is either there or was just there. And he's left his coffee still half drank, and it's still it's still hot.
I think the Hunters, the Hunters were onto cloning early. I think there are 2 Mark Hunters. One scouts internationally, one scouts domestically. We're out of time. We'll be listening to the sheet or watching the sheet. Thank you, sir. Until next week.
Maddie, thanks. Good to be on with you, PJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So, Carson Price from the historic Wall Center. And if you're heading to a game in downtown Vancouver, make a staycation out of it. Like Saturday, for example. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Carson Price rate here at the Wall Center. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. You can text this show, 778-402-9680. Email live at carsonprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips, it's going to be great. BC Lions announced today that their May 19th preseason game against the Calgary Stampeders is heading to Vancouver Island, Starlight Stadium in Langford. Club, of course, played the Touchdown Pacific game on Vancouver Island to much fanfare and success last year against the Ottawa Red Blacks. And season ticket holders can opt into this game. Public sale starts on March 11th. I think and he's from Vancouver Island, so it stands to reason. But I think Amar Doman has done a fabulous job in trying to make the team and the games more accessible for all those great football fans on the island.
Starlight would be a fun place to watch a football game.
Mm-hmm. It's intimate.
It's intimate. You're on top of the field.
Right on top of it.
And those end stands that they've added, it's a fun place to watch any sporting game, but obviously a football game would be really fun.
Right, because of course Touchdown Pacific was
Royal Victoria.
Exactly. For capacity reasons. Good reporting from your colleague here, Steve Ewan.
He does that.
Yeah, he's a good reporter. Vancouver Giants captain Masden Leslie won't be back next year. Opts for the NCAA Bowling Green University, Kevin Biex's alma mater. Leslie's been passed over in the last 2 drafts, but he could have gone back to the Giants as a 20-year-old last year. He's the team captain. He's the second leading scorer in among WHL defensemen. And he joins a Portland Winterhawk forward, Diego Buttazzoni, who committed to UMass Lowell, amongst prominent non-graduating players to announce their NCAA intentions. And Steve wonders how many follows is anyone's guess.
This is the way forward. I think there's going to be, we know this, right? Like there's going to be, this is what was always, it was always unfair that these kids couldn't do that. And now the door's been opened, and, that was always the kind of ace in the hole that BCHL had. So it's going to be interesting how this thing shifts everything.
I don't know about you, but I was struck at just how unprepared, poorly thought out, and frankly arrogant major junior hockey, and particularly the Ontario Hockey League, was with the coming of all of this in the NC2As. I think a lot of people in major junior hockey thought, that'll wipe out junior A hockey. We'll have a bigger player pool from which to draw. The OHL was even talking about rapid expansion, right? We're gonna line our coffers with some expansion money. I think what they failed to realize is while junior A is certainly going to suffer, and there might be a bigger player pool available, I think they underestimated the bleed from their current ranks to the NCAA, given that these kids can now, at the very least, get a scholarship while they pursue pro hockey.
Yeah.
But even more beyond that, Patrick, some of these kids are going to get paid.
Yep.
Like, NCAA hockey, it's not football. Football is king. It's not men's basketball, which is a massive commercial success. It may not even be women's basketball, which has made some incredible strides here, particularly thanks to Caitlin Clark. But NCAA hockey is a big enough deal on, like, Boston University, for example, that doesn't have a big football program. Denver University, that doesn't have
Bowling Green.
At least they played Division I football. But some of these schools are going to be able to amass war chests of NIL money and be able to pay these teenage hockey players to come play at 18.
Yeah.
So, this is. We've talked about with Jeff Merrick in the past and others. A revolution is coming to hockey development here. We're in the early stages, and
I mean, if you're an NHL drafted player at 18, I mean, it will make sense to me if NHL teams are encouraging you to go to the NCAA route because of all the sort of development advantages that you can get by playing once a week. You get to hit the gym and all these other things. It's more focused on building the athlete and not so much about selling tickets.
Yeah. You gonna watch the game on Sunday?
Oh, is there a game on Sunday?
There's a football game Sunday.
I probably will watch the game on Sunday.
I know you're not the biggest football guy.
No, I'm a football guy. No, absolutely. Of course, I'm watching the game on Sunday.
Who isn't watching the game on Sunday? You have
I would have been. I'm going with the Eagles. I mean, it's not even that. I admire what the Chiefs have been able to do. It's been a remarkable thing that Andy Reid has done. But I'm tired of the Chiefs. I wanted to see the Bills. I want to see the Bills. I wanted the Bills fans' energy, and also the Eagles. I mean, my buddy Derek's a huge Eagles fan. My dad has become a big Eagles fan. There's the Silver Linings playbook angle to all of this. There's just the narrative for the Eagles around the Eagles is always, in general, the narrative around Philly sports is always better, right? Mm-hmm. So just from the sort of all the bits. Yeah, of course I'm going for the Eagles.
Botch's team too, right? You remember?
I mean, does that make them? It was almost the same unofficial team was Garrison Price, maybe.
Well, no, the unofficial team is the Chicago.
No, the official team is Chicago.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying,
Well, so no, Blake's a Seahawks fan.
Seahawks,
yeah. Blake's a Seahawks fan.
Honorary.
Blake's son's a Seahawks fan as well. So they're speaking of the Bears, passing of their matriarch Virginia McCaskey, the daughter of George S. Hallis, the founder of the NFL. She passed away today at 102 years old. Think of that for a second. Born on the outskirts of World War I.
Yeah.
Was university-aged in World War II. And look, she hasn't had an active role in the Bears for many, many, many years here. But her family still does, and she's always there drinking a beer in the suite. So we'll miss her. Okay, got to tell you about the Daily Face-Off. Our partners here with the Nation Network. Daily Face-Off Live. They're hitting the road. They're going live on location from the 4Nations tournament. Going to bring you exclusive coverage straight from the tourney sites, February 10th to 20th. They got live shows every weekday, breaking down the biggest stories, key matchups, all the action as it unfolds. They'll be watching some of the league's best players. Of course, we all will go head-to-head representing their countries. Don't miss a second. Subscribe to the Daily Face-Off YouTube channel and follow on all social platforms to stay locked in. You get insider analysis, on-the-ground coverage, maybe even a little chaos. Yeah, that happens from time to time. And that all gets going February 10th. Daily Face-Off live on location from the 4Nations. Poll question results from Wednesday, Patrick. We asked them, do you believe Elias Pettersson will get his game back? Yes, no, not in Vancouver. Do you have the results in front of you? Or would you like to play along and guess?
Let's play along.
What won the poll?
I always like to play along.
Yes,
it's more fun.
no, or not in Vancouver. What did the people vote? 2,000 votes on this. So
well, I'm going to say people said yes.
They did. Care to guess the percentage?
85.
85.
Yes.
45.
Okay.
Missed it by that.
Just a little.
That was his Bob Uecker tribute.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
A little.
45% yes. Not in Vancouver got 30% of the vote. 26% said no. We rounded up, so I know it doesn't add up to 100. Don't put me on E's and O's. James, I think there's enough evidence that shows he's dealing with an injury, whether the Canucks accept it or not. Saw a lot of that in the comments. Rogue Canuck says yes, but he needs an offseason. Yep, that's possible. Vlado, he can't be trusted. Move on from him. Take a loss if you have to, and let's turn the page on this Miller EP40 saga. And Steve says Pettersson can't handle a Canadian market and what's expected of the player. LA, San Jose, etc. That's where he'll do his best professionally / personally. Not everyone's cut out to play in Canada. He's not the first or the last player to go down this road. You buy that?
No.
Okay. Do you buy that he's hurt and needs an offseason?
No.
Okay.
I think he just needed a reset. We'll see how this goes. I mean, listen, I could be wrong, but I think I think the air needed to be cleared in there. And I mean, listen, he's not blown anybody away with how he's played in the 2 games since
no,
left.
But it's 2 games
or 3 games, I guess. But it's.
Yeah,
I believe the player is still there. I believe.
Yes.
I believe it's a case of I don't even know if will's the word, but it's inside.
Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. Mike Rogerson was so contrite about not having that Rick Tocchet clip ready to go. He sent me a text thereafter. I said, I'm sorry, Mike. We're just going to have to take back one of your Junos, okay? And I screwed up a clip, too. And just before anybody in Kamloops gets up in arms, and I mention it in the hit with Jeff Merrick, because who was it yesterday? It was Tuesday. John Shannon praised Calgary Flames head coach Ryan Huska and talked about the training he got in Kelowna. And yes, he was a coach for the Rockets. But, of course, everybody in Kamloops remembers him as a guy who played for the Blazers and won 3 Memorial Cups. So there you go. Kamloops, you get your Ryan Huska claim as much as the folks in Kelowna do for his coaching development. That's it for us. Thanks for listening, everybody, watching. Appreciate you spending the time connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Thank you, sir, for sitting in the last couple of days. I know you've been busy on Rink Wide as well.
Rink Wide and covering signings and games and everything. No, it's been a delight. It's always a pleasure to be here.
I'll have J-Pat with me tomorrow. Keep it low.